Hi class, we now start section 4. The nice thing about section 4 is this is about promotion. This is about what you thought you were signing up for when you took this class. But as you see, if you really want to get a rich experience and understand how promotion really works, you have to understand all the other stuff also. And so we've gone over 3 of the P's so far, and this is the last of the P's in place. And so what we'll talk about today is, why is promotion so important? How do we message? How do we measure it? And so, in a nutshell, if we had to just summarize it, essentially what promotion is about is the 2 big things I want to do is 1, I want to get noticed. I want you to know who I am. And 2, it's how do I command the conversation? How do I tell you about what my benefits are? How do I steer you? How do I connect my product with your preferences? And also, looking at the other options, commanding the conversation that way. Again, this is the marketing influence. This is a very large part of making everything else work. And so, what it comes down to is when we look at these steps of what we try to do from building awareness and creating associations. In the short term, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get sales, trying to get money in. Longer term, though, we're building something called brand equity. And we'll be going through that in the branding lecture. But essentially what brand equity is the reason why I'm willing to pay more for your product. And what does this get back to? Dun-dun-dun-dun, pricing. That's right. We either do value pricing or perception pricing. Brand equity is why perception pricing works. So in terms of generating awareness, this is one of the 2 big pillars that promotion sits on. We tell people about alternatives. We can also, by creating awareness, for those people who are in real need or pain or whatever, we could jump to trial. And not only that, but what it comes down to is we also have to think of promotion as it affects people who have used our product or have tried it and might be interested in switching or something like that. And so what we need to do is control that conversation. The thing is, we live in an age of technology products. There are very few products now that don't have some level of technology in it. And so on technology-based products, what do we know? Well, one, we know education is a very big deal because if I don't understand what the product is used for and how I apply it to something, then what good is it? Not only that, but the big thing about technology products is there's risk involved. And so how do I get around that risk? How do I make them feel comfortable? And also, I need to find a way to get them excited just because, again, we have blinders on. We don't listen to advertising, I should say. The thing is, in terms of communication and its impact, again, it's your perceptions, preferences, also customer behavior, how you develop an intent to purchase, and also trade partners. The way you communicate also affects how people perceive you and how they want to work with you. So in terms of strategy, these are the things that you look at. The right thing by the right people, the right way, at the right time, consistently over time across different means. That's what all promotion is about. How do you have the right message at the right time? And is it going over the right channels? Essentially, in terms of actions, we've talked about this before, there's 2 different kinds of marketing. There's pull marketing, there's push marketing. Pull marketing is the big thing today, and that's that you entice the customers to come to you. Essentially, I send out information, a blog or something, they link to me. Push marketing is essentially you put it out there and you entice the customers to just buy it directly. And an example of that is food. The thing about food is everybody eats food. And so that's the thing. Pull marketing, if you have a very specific market, you're going to get a lot of noise if you try to go for everyone. And push marketing, you try to go for products that are relatively generic that a lot of people are going to need. So who is it that we're targeting? And so it's more than just customers. We also want to influence our partners, influencers. Recently there was an article that came out and it talked about how teens are confused. There's too much data, there's too much they want to know. So how are teens going to buy products? They trust their friends. Their friends tell them what it is, what's cool, what works, and what doesn't. And this is why teenagers have such a high Q. And this is why influencers are so important. The thing is, in terms of crafting a plan, these are the steps, and it's pretty straightforward. Always, you start out with your objectives, and then you think about what it is I want to do, how much is it going to cost, how am I going to measure success, and essentially what it comes down to, and this probably should say craft a strategy, which would be better. Now, the thing about when you communicate is you're sending something out, and in a sense, depending on the channel that you're using, you are encoding your message. And then decoding the message is what the person you're communicating with. Now, does that make a lot of sense? Why is it always pointed out in every communication class? Well, the reason why is, for example, if I call you up on the phone versus me talking to you face to face, two totally different experiences. If I send you an email and say I make a sarcastic joke in the email, well, if we're looking at each other one-on-one, then you can see my mannerisms, that I'm laughing, that I'm smiling or whatever. You can't see that in the email. And this is why this encryption and decryption, or encoding and decoding, is so important in communication. Because depending on the channel and the means that you pick to communicate by, it can have a different effect. And so, what are the characteristics of a good message? It has to remove clutter. That's the thing. Some of you, when you write, it's like I go nuts because your paragraphs go for a whole page. The rule of thumb is a paragraph shouldn't go past more than 10 lines, and ideally no longer than 8. And that's because visually when you look at a piece of paper, you see clutter and it becomes difficult to read. Also, information I don't need, that's clutter. And so my messages need to be targeted, they need to be cost efficient, and they have to connect. So, now that we know that, how do we craft our message? What we shoot for is either we're going about position and personality, which is about customer benefits. In the view of the eyes of the customer, what am I going to do? Big ideal. Is my message something so inspiring? I mean, if you look at like the 1984 Apple commercial, nowhere in that entire commercial, and Ridley Scott, the guy who did the Aliens movies, actually directed that, and he said he thought it was amazing because nowhere in the entire commercial does it tell you, go buy Apple products. It doesn't talk about the product anywhere. It just ends with think different. Or in some way, is it really appealing? Is it believable? Is it something real? Is it something that connects with you? Those are the three kind of messages that, in general, you want to craft. And here's a generic format. If you need to come up with a message to talk about your product and you don't know where to start with this. It's a framework. However, what you do at the end is start wordsmithing and crafting it yourself. Why? Because everybody uses this. And so what happens, you're just another cookie in a sea of millions of cookies. And I give you an example there of when you use that template, what you can come up with. I talked about Waymo, driverless cars. And so let's look at the creativity of some of the messages. J&J, caring for the world one person at a time. Personalized, big message. They're caring about the world. HP, invent. Boy, that's an oxymoron. No, in the 1980s, HP was one of the coolest places to go work. GE, imagination at work. Now let's look at the cell phone companies. AT&T versus Verizon versus Sprint versus T-Mobile. Can anybody tell me what's unique about all those? Um, well, they try to undermine each other in terms of um, they try to undermine each other in terms of message and things like that. Sprint's telling you that 1% doesn't matter. If we have 1%, if 1% errors were acceptable, we would have about 100 million pieces of mail every day that would get lost. Anyway, so the reason why you can't distinguish them is none of them have a really creative and clear message. And we'll go on more to talk about that.